Okay, we're calling this meeting to order at 7 p.m. Good evening. For the audience here today, the City of Glendora utilizes a hybrid meeting format to allow for participation both in person and virtually. In consideration of others and the business conducted tonight, please silence your phones and any electronic devices, and please refrain from speaking unless recognized. This is a public meeting for the community of Glendora. We appreciate your respect and appreciate your participation tonight. Madam Clerk, will you please conduct roll call?
Thank you, Chair. At this time, I would like to conduct an oral roll call and request that each commissioner respond with present when their name is called. Commissioner Becerra.
Present.
Commissioner Davis.
Present.
Vice Chair Norwood.
Present.
And Chair Koss.
Present.
For our present, we have a quorum. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Becerra, would you like to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Does anyone wish to reorder or add to the agenda tonight? Okay. Okay, then I will go ahead and open public comment period. I now invite members of the public to address the Planning Commission. Speakers are limited to 3 minutes speaking once, both on and off agenda items. All questions should be directed through the presiding officer. This is your time to speak uninterrupted. If you're in attendance, please fill out a speaker card and submit it to the recording administrator before the close of the public comment period. Once recognized, speakers may advance to the podium, state your name and the subject matter you wish to discuss. If you are participating via Zoom, select the raise hand icon in Zoom before the close of the public comment period. Once recognized, you will receive a request to unmute, state your name and the subject matter you wish to discuss. Do we have any public comment cards?
Thank you. I just also want to point out that if you're here to speak on a public hearing, each one of the public hearings has an opportunity for you to give public testimony. This is just for general public comments related to agenda on and off agenda items. Okay. At this time, I don't see anybody in the Zoom participants that have requested, and we received no emails as well. We did receive an email, but that was for a public hearing, which will be read later.
Okay.
Yellow cards right in the entranceway there. You'll see it in the foyer.
So there's no public comment at this time.
No public comment at this
Okay.
time.
Okay. So then I close public comment period. And I will now invite each commission member to make a statement or report. Do any of you have a statement? Commissioner Davis?
No.
Commissioner Norwood?
None today, thank you.
Commissioner Becerra?
Not at this time.
Okay, thank you. I'll now invite Community Development Director Jeff Kugel and Assistant City Attorney Lona Lehman to provide statements.
No statement.
None from me.
Okay, and there are no special items at this time. Okay.
Chairman Koss, at this time, for item number 2, I will be recusing myself for deliberations on this.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Item number 2.
And just to be clear, Commissioner, you're accusing yourself due to property ownership proximity to the phase issue. Thank you.
Thank you. Item number 2, the development plan review request related to revised architecture and plotting for homes proposed for construction in track 66608, phase 1721 and model build out MBO, and track 66609, phase 22 Meyer Lane, and to eliminate 3 homes from the development phasing plan. Project number PLN 220016, applicant William Lyons Homes, Taylor Morrison, location La Colina Estates, Monrovia Nursery. I now declare the public hearing open.
Good evening, Chair and members of the Commission. Mark Carnahan, City Planner. As stated, tonight for consideration is a development plan review request for architectural and plotting changes to homes proposed for the La Colina tracks, specifically again, phases 17 through 21 and model build out, and track 6609, phase 22, and to eliminate 3 homes from the development phasing plan. Quick history, back in 2010, the city council adopted the Minerva Nursery specific plan, as well as approved the tracks of 66608 and 66609. The plan provided guidance and standards for the development of approximately 95 acres of formerly used nursery land. Following that, around in September 2012, the council adopted a development plan review for 2-story residential construction and construction phasing. They also did some amendments and technical changes relative to pad elevations and drainage facilities and walls, as well as some minor changes to the plan. Next slide. And next slide. Okay. Here's a visual of the south site plan approved in 2012. Most of all these homes have been built or under construction. Note the 5 lots that are up for review tonight are the farthest left and northernmost on the site plan. And they will be a little bit different than the rest of the site of the site plan in the sense that they're not flat. They're going to be kind of developed as hillside lots. And those 5 homes will be accessed via a private road for those lots. Next slide. And this is the site plan for the northern tracts from 2012. And for this proportion, everything west of Yucca Ridge Road in this plan has been built or is under construction, almost done. Everything to the east of this project is what is being considered tonight. Next slide. So this is the visual that kind of demonstrates the current development phasing plan for the project. Approximately 81 of the 124 originally proposed homes have been completed or are under construction. The subject areas for change are currently vacant, but some grading and utility work has started on those areas. Next one. So this is the location map visual. This is going to help us tonight to understand which lots we're actually talking about. Again, we're only talking about the ones on the northeast that are shown in blue, and on the kind of the middle part here, which is phase 22, which are the Myers Lane lots that might be referred to. All the ones in gray, again, are under construction or have been built. Next slide. So this is just an aerial to give you a perspective of the north La Colina, kind of the northeast part of the project. Next. This is a map of the proposed site plan. The 2-story homes are noted in red. Also, all lots and roadways are still being designed per the already entitled track map, and no changes are being proposed to those at all, the road or the lots. The homes have been 3 homes have been removed from the development phasing plan aspect of the project in order to accommodate 2 basins near Yucca Ridge Road on lots 13, 14, and 15. The purpose of which is to accommodate updated mud debris flow analysis. These additional basins have been anticipated with previously approved grading plans, and the new proposed modifications again relocate them entirely now on those 3 lots. Next slide. This is an aerial of the south area, which is what would be called Myers Lane. The Myers Lane private road kind of goes, will kind of wrap around the cemetery here. Next slide. This is kind of the layout of the proposed site plan. Again, here, the only 2-story home being proposed for this area is on the farther northern lot 65 in this case. And again, this would be a private drive. No change to the design of the lots nor the roads are being proposed. Again, these are just house design changes. Next slide. All right, so the architectural changes here are being proposed for all the future constructed lots that are remaining in the La Colina development. The new homes consist of 1- and 2-story plan types. There are 3 different floor plans, plans 1, 2, and 3. One of which is a 2-story home, which is the plans 3 that you can see on your right-hand side there. Each floor plan has two different architectural elevations, which are identified as farmhouse, traditional, or Spanish. This results in two concepts in each style for a total of 6 different building variations. The plan appears to be adequate, have an adequate variety as seen on the project plans here, and they're designed to be in substantial conformance with the development and design requirements of the specific plan. All proposed 2-story homes comply with the development standards for the La Colina. All plans will meet the setbacks and FAR reference requirements. Just note again, the 2-story homes here are technically the items for planning commission review per the municipal code and the specific plans. Specific plans requires 2-story home review approvals. The other single-story homes are mostly being shown here for context reference. The newly designed homes have been replotted on the subject lot areas. The homes all are oriented towards the roadways and placed on their respective lots to comply with setback standards. The plotting has 2-story homes, 11 total, and those plotting of those homes comply with the specific plan. One of which of the requirements is that none of the homes on the south side of the development that's adjacent to the existing neighborhood be 2-story. So in the plotting, all of that row are all single-story. Specifically, the 2-story homes are going to be on lots 29, 30, 32, 34, 36, 38, 40, 42, 44, and 47. Next slide. Just for context, this is the house plan 1, and it's being offered in a farmhouse and a Spanish style. It's a 3 or 4 bedroom house with a 3.5 bath and a 3-car garage. Next slide. Plan 2 is here. It's offered in a farmhouse and a traditional style. It has 5 bedrooms, 4 baths, and a 3-car garage. Next slide. Plan 3, this is the home which is being offered in Spanish and traditional styles. It has 5 bedrooms, 4.5 baths, and a 3-car garage. Note again that the Plan 3 2-story is what is being presented for PC approval. Next slide. They're proposing 9 different color schemes proposed to diversify the homes. Note that while the proposed colors are appropriate, staff does have a concern that they might all be too similar. And as such, we have added a condition of approval in the resolution that requires that the applicant revise the color schemes so that they have more contrast within the selections. And that would just be a staff level review later on following the approval. Next slide. For the project notice of the public hearing was provided in the San Gabriel Valley Examiner, and property owners within 500 feet of the subject areas in blue were mailed a notice. Staff has received several verbal inquiries and a couple of emails regarding the notice that were sent. However, I would say most of which are questions of not relating to the topic we're having tonight. They were questions on landscaping and streetlights and resurfacing and scheduling and like street or Madre widening. Not a lot had to do with what was being discussed tonight. Maybe we'll have a few more comments maybe coming tonight that we can hear as well. Next slide. Closing up, staff recommends approval of the development plan review, subject to conditions of approval. As changes are compatible and complementary to the surrounding residential neighborhood and areas. The plans are generally consistent with the general plan and applicable standards of the specific plan. All required findings as well as conditions of approval have been included within the draft resolution. Finally, staff can answer any questions as well as the applicant is here tonight.
Thank you. At this time, we'd like to invite the applicant, William Lyons Homes, Taylor Morrison, Gordon Nichols, to address the commission. Mr. Nichols, you have 10 minutes.
Thank you, commissioners. As stated before, my name is Gordon Nichols. I am the project manager for William Lyon Homes and Taylor Morrison Homes. Taylor Morrison Homes acquired William Lyons Homes a number of years ago, and we've worked diligently to finish this project. Mark Summerat gave a very detailed summary of what is being proposed. Again, we felt that the final couple of phases of this particular development needed a new floor plan. The floor plans that were previously done were done a number of years ago, and listening to consumer feedback, potential buyers, and also understanding some of the constraints of the current market and building materials, generally taste of what's happening and just buyer preference, we are proposing the revised floor plans. Again, the floor plans and pricing will be in line with what is currently being offered in the south track of 6609. And the floor plans, again, are all within conformance of the specific code as far as offsets, color schemes, and so forth. And again, no two-story homes are being built on any of the lots adjacent to the other property, the adjacent property owners. Again, we have plans to improve Sierra Madre. We have a widening there. We have plans to improve the Branca section of our lot. And again, we are reducing the number of homes that we're going to be building there, which also reduces the vehicle traffic and reduces the overall construction time of that development. We felt that it was important to add the 2 basins on lots 13, 14, and 15. Previously, we had approved basins that were in the back of lots 15 and 16 and along the edge of lot 13. After reviewing updated hydrology, studying the new flows, preparing for a 1,000-year storm event, we made the difficult decision to reduce the number of homes that we're going to be selling, but adding the safety features of the revised and designed basins. Additionally, we also have Basin F, which was previously approved, and that is going to be a county-maintained basin. And again, all of these basins are there to protect the residents of the existing neighborhoods and the future neighborhoods against storm events, 100-year and 1,000-year, against debris, mud flows, and mudslides. We really want to make this community as safe as possible, and we're doing our best to alleviate that. Again, we have revised the architecture slightly to include a different variety of homes, and that is based on essentially customer feedback in our marketing department. So I'm free to answer any questions here today, but again, I have a general summary of what's happened. I'll take questions from the council, the planning commissioners if they have any.
We do that now.
I'd like to withhold my questions till I hear some of the more of the public
Public
comment.
comment.
Mr. Norwood.
Okay.
Yes, and I'll make myself available to come up and answer any questions that may arise that you feel the applicant would be appropriate. Again, we are building, we have essentially 40 lots to build. We are only going to be building 37 of those homes. And that is what we are proposing as far as the placement of the plotting. Again, we have all of our setbacks in coordination with a specific plan to make sure that no views are obstructed and everything's in specific plan guidance. Additionally, too, we also have Rodriguez Way, which will be opening up. Rodriguez Way is a 36-foot wide interior street with a 26-foot wide drive aisle. That is a interior street for the city. And I know there's been some concern about the width of that, but I just want to make it clear on the record that is a 36-foot wide road with a 26-foot wide driveway and parking on either side. And there will be a stop sign on Barranca. We'll also be feathering the curb on Barranca to allow a easier ingress and egress of the community. And that's the street that will be open. So any other comments or questions? I'm here to answer. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So at this time, I'll invite members of the public to address the commission to provide public testimony. Speakers are limited to 3 minutes speaking once on this public hearing item. This is your time to speak uninterrupted. Once recognized, speakers advance to the podium, state your name, and all questions are directed through the presiding officer. So it looks like we have Leanne Berthel. Did I say that correctly?
Sorry, did we turn this into you now?
Luann Berthel. Oh, there you are. Take your time.
Good evening. I see all these wonderful plans down to the details of the paint colors, but there's one important detail, and as they say, the devil is in the detail, because I live, oh, by the way, I didn't tell you, I'm Luann Berthel, and I live at the end of Meyer Lane. the little notch on the left-hand side of the border. And we, the one small detail is it doesn't connect Meyer Lane to my property. There's probably about, it's all on their land, but it's an elevation of probably 20, 30 feet. And it doesn't have enough space to have, it doesn't look like to me to have a driveway that, or access road that would be acceptable to both the fire department and your city codes as far as steepness goes. I've been doing this since 2004. And from the time Miles Rosedale and I signed the agreement, we've been working on it. But now, somewhere along the line, I'm trying to decide what year, but when Jerry Burke was in the department, City Ventures came to me with a sign or thing that I was supposed to sign so they could grade down my property to meet their elevation. I don't want to do that. I wrote to Jerry Burke and to City Ventures. I don't know what all's happened since then, but I think this detail really needs to be addressed, because if you look on the map, all you see is some green smudges. And it just seems as if you should be able to have it located and the elevations delineated before it's, before it's completely done. Because my heirs and I are probably never going to grant permission to do any grading on my property. So we might have a problem down the line if they continue and put in the Myers Lane at the present elevation. It needs to be higher or but I'm not going to go lower. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have another public comment card from Mark Davis.
Good evening, Chairman Cost, Commissioners. My name is Mark W. Davis. I live at 1260 High Crest Road here in Glendora, and I am speaking on behalf of myself and my home tonight, not as a commissioner. The Monrovia Nursery project goes back many years, all the way to Azusa. I've been in my house for 22 years, and I started following this project within a year of moving into that house. They have 3, 4, 5,000 square foot lots in Azusa. We fought, originally it was supposed to be 1,600 homes over there, and we just thought that was too dense. So we fought to reduce that and increase lot sizes. We managed to get it down to 1,200 homes from 1,600. In essence, making bigger lots, bigger homes, more expensive homes, higher property values. When they came to Glendora, they had the same intent to do 3, 4, 5,000, 6,000 square foot lots. You folks that live in 20,000 square foot lots, you can thank Doug Boyd and me and a host of others for the 20,000 square foot lot that you live on. That's the brass ring that we aimed for and we got. Now that's been 20 years. I've heard 20 years of beep, 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 dust all over the place. We have to clean our windows all the time. The roads are a mess. I say all this to say that it's time to wrap this project up. I know the citizens who live in the lower portion. They've been there 5 years, 6 years, maybe 7 years. This has been going on an awfully long time. This is time to wrap this up. I would further suggest that we give Taylor Morrison latitude to build what sells, not just be held to the specific plan numbers of plans. Now, granted, you'd want diversity and you'd want it to look, like I said, diversity, but maybe that's not possible. Maybe they need to be held to hard numbers, but nonetheless, I think they should have the diversity, the flexibility to build what sells so they can get in and get out. This has been going on too long. 22 years, 20 years is a long time for the residents in the area to withstand construction on a daily basis after hours. It's incredible. Other than that, that's really all I have to say. I want to thank you for your time.
Thank you. Oh, here you go. Okay, Audrey Teasdale.
So I'm going to go fairly quickly. I've written many letters and spoke numerous times on these meetings regarding the proposed road that's entering Barranca from the northern track. My life-threatening hazardous safety concerns for a proposed 60-foot road to be built 30 feet directly across from my primary driveway have not been addressed by the city. Barranca is divided and down the middle. The city ownership is on the west, the county is on the east. Your December 2010 city council meeting, the general plan's circulation to element goal 5 and supporting policies prohibit new vehicle connections between Glendora residential streets and other jurisdictions, except for emergency access. You are violating that. This 60-foot proposed road is built, it will violate the city's general plan that says access would only encourage the use of non-arterials as a major circulation route. Barranca is only a local street per Glendora standards, and it would not protect existing and future Glendora neighborhoods from traffic originating in an adjacent jurisdiction. And new access would also permit vehicles connecting into the planning area from other jurisdictions. So now this is the general plan. Now the Monrovia specific plan states it is worthy to note the current city of Glendora general plan policy no longer allows the extension of streets or completion of street links between the city of Glendora and other jurisdictions. To sum this up, the California Government Code section 6545-4 provides no specific plan may be adopted unless it is consistent with the city's general plan. Likewise, the city cannot approve any subdivision unless it is consistent with the general plan. Actions approved by a city that are in conflict with the city's general plan are void. This is very important. Your conditions of approval for this tract are missing numbers in your document, number 28 to 36, totally absent from the document. This and that notations of, well, the developer has complied, monitored, These are conditions that haven't even begun and are inconsistent and result in the conditions of approval document invalid. So to sum this up, the proposed 60-foot road cannot be constructed as it violates both the general and the specific plan. The conditions of approval are inaccurate and incomplete, therefore void. And also LA County awaits your traffic impact analysis, which they say has been done incomplete. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Teasdale. Next is Olivia Navarro.
Good evening. I'm Olivia Navarro. I live, my property entrance is right off of Sierra Madre, and my concern this evening is the debris basin, which has been changed recently. My concerns are it's going to be drawing additional pests in addition to mosquitoes and the buffalo flies that we already have to deal with. Secondly, I was speaking to somebody and they said that they were going to put some foliage in the area to try to hide it. And I'm, again, what does it look like and what kind of plants are going to be there and will it impede my view? Also, just in agreement with my neighbor, Mark, the wind does blow north, and we do get a lot of things with the debris basin. All of the little critters are gonna be blown my way. So that's my concern. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any more comment cards? Okay, Stephen Dulay.
Good evening. My name is Steve Dulay, and I'm here to protest against having a street, Rodriguez Way namely, to go through to Barranca. Already Barranca is tremendously overstressed. Even with anything, any traffic control, any widening of the road is going to be ridiculous to add more traffic. And a stop sign only, we need at least another stop light, because the traffic is so horrific. And already my wife and I have a hell of a time coming off of La Fetra onto Barranca, especially a couple of times a day. And this is unbelievable. And to not have a stop sign, to only have a stop sign there is ridiculous. To have an opening from the new track into Barranca is crazy. Barranca can't handle it. Already the water flow alone, the depth of the curve of the storm drain on the street is ridiculous already. Some days you can't get out, you can't get in. And so I protest having that access, another road onto Barranca. There's no way. And that's my comment for the evening, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do we have any other comment cards?
We received no additional comment cards, no testimony that was submitted via email. There was one email that was received after 5 o'clock today. That was Ms. Teasdale's comment, but since she already gave testimony in person, that will not be read. I do want to mention that there were public comments related to this item that were received prior to 5 o'clock that were posted to the website, given to the commission, and made available to the public. At this time, if there is anybody on the Zoom call that would like to give public testimony, they can use the raise hand icon at this time to be recognized. Okay, there are no participants on Zoom. Is this for this item? Or do you want to speak on this item?
Yes.
Yes,
Okay, one more?
yes,
Okay.
one more.
Here you go.
I'm assuming this is your last name? You're supposed to write your name on here. You see where you? Sam, thank you.
Okay, Mr. Sam, Mr. Zigas, is it Zigas?
Yeah, that's my company name. Sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, I'm a architect designer, and I live in this adjacent property, and I live only around less than 1 year in this neighborhood, and I love it. And when I know there is a new development in this lot, I'm going to support it, because I really want this this project is getting sooner to construction. You know, I live in here only less than 1 year, but I see the bear 3 times going across my street. And I'm really, my wife and my family is very fear of that. I think that the reason it's because it's a large empty lot in there. So the wild animal is very easier to access. And yeah, I as a designer, I see the plan maybe not perfect, but I support it, and I want it to be sooner. So maybe when all the homes there can be avoid the bear a little bit. Okay, that's my idea. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
One more.
Okay, and we have Mario Garcia and Joanna Garcia.
Good evening. So we live in on La Crosse Street in the corner between Sierra Madre and Barranca. And so our main concern is that sometimes we can't even get out of our driveway. The backup of cars, especially during drop-off for the St. Lucy's school across from where we live, the backup of cars goes sometimes all the way into La Fetra, like a whole street. So now we are going to add a lot more traffic, and I can't believe that there's not going to be an entrance from Sierra Madre, because now the traffic backup on Barranca is going to be unbelievable. Not only that, because people are in a rush and the amount of cars, there's several accidents that happen here. They don't make the news because thank God they're not fatalities, but there's many accidents that happen in that corner because people are trying to beat the right turn, the left turn. So now, so that's our primary concern. And the second one is that since we've been there and we were made aware, obviously, that there's going to be construction, we were told there would be no two-story homes as they would block the views. So I know they're addressing a specific portion that won't be blocked, but everybody else, basically, they don't say much about the elevation of the two-story homes. But for us, that we are in the corner of Barranca and Sierra Madre, now there's going to be a two-story home basically right across from us. But that's honestly, that's not really the most important thing. The main issue is the traffic. Just the amount of cars now using Barranca is already saturated. Now they're going to be adding even more. And I'm just concerned that there's not been enough like real life study about this. And the backups are just, I can't only imagine how it's going to be. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any additional comments?
Yes, we received one raised hand on Zoom from a participant. There's no name of the participant. It just says iPad 107. iPad 107, can you please state your name? Can you hear us? Thank you.
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, please state your name. You have 3 minutes.
Yes, my name is John Wirawan. I live in Sierra Madre, right across or adjacent to the construction of the
La Colina Estate.
La Colina Estate. And we've been experiencing a lot of animals, like somebody mentioned to you guys about the animals, from raccoon all the way to the bear, right? And also a lot of insects, mosquitoes, because they do have some kind of holes in there that, they dig. And then when it rains, it collects water. And, I couldn't even stand 5 minutes outside, so, and also the traffic is unbearable right now. So everybody else is saying the same thing. I couldn't even get out of, from my driveway to Sierra Madre. Sometimes it takes me to about 2 minutes maximum, maybe 3 minutes. So we need to have some kind of ordinance in that area. At the same time, when we turn from, when we going north to Barranca, turning left to Sierra Madre, we couldn't even see the car coming in from the west. So because of the weeds or, like some kind of bushes in there, and sometimes they put flyers in there. So that's dangerous, right? So I had an accident over there because, when I got out, somebody just plowed me over there. Okay. So, the view right now also, is going to, I heard that they're going to build a three-level house over there. And, I moved here 25 years ago to this area, to where I'm at right now. And for the view, right? So, before, maybe the Doug Boyd, we worked together to stop this, and I don't know where it is now, right? So Doug has passed already, so bless his heart. But this is ridiculous. It's been You know, the noise and the dust collecting at my property is unbearable. And that's it. Thank you and good night.
The development has been taking a little bit too long. I just want it like wrap up as soon as possible too.
Thank you very much for your comment. Are there any other public comments?
No further requests to give public testimony at this time.
Okay, I will invite the applicant, William Lyons Home, Gordon Nichols, to address the commission and provide any closing remarks not to exceed 5 minutes.
Thank you, commissioners. There was a number of concerns brought up, and I'm going to touch on as many as I can in the brief amount of time. I echo everyone's sentiment that we do want this community to be wrapped up as soon as possible. Construction is a difficult task, especially on the foothills, but we are working diligently to wrap the construction as quickly as possible. The major dust component that is in any development is rough grading and utilities. We are currently working on those right now. We are rough grading the site. We are putting in our storm drains, and we're hoping to have those done in the coming months, minus any major storm events. But again, I want to address first the Munns residents. Luann, she did make a comment, and anyone else who has an adjacent property with an agreement from the previously from City Ventures or William Lyons Homes, those agreements will be honored. On the site plan, there is a indicator of lot P, and that is actually going to be the drive approach for Miss Munns, and we are not actually going to be grading on her on that site at all. So that was indicated in the final map that is recorded now, and it is again the location of the drive approach for them, which is a fairly significant size drive approach. I believe it's about 35-40 feet wide. The animals, unfortunately, we do have a number of animals in the foothills. I cannot speak to the patterns of the coyotes and bears out there, but we do agree with everyone in that regard, and we're doing our best to develop that area and make it safe for habitants and also respect the natural species out there. The corner of Barranca, there has been some concerns about the visuals on that. If we could go, well, maybe we can't, but if we can go back to the slideshow of the site plan, I do want to make a reference that number one, on the southwest corner, there is a lot F detention basin. That lot F is about 350 feet wide. There is a 30-foot slope around that lot off of Barranca, and that is going to be a significant buffer for the views of anyone on there. Additionally, we are improving Barranca on the corner. We're going to be feathering in the curb and also removing the temporary fence. We'll be cleaning out the weeds and everything else going on there, and we think it'll provide a much more visual, much more vision to anyone making a left turn or a right turn out of the community. Again, Rodriguez Way is not a 60-foot wide street. It is a 36-foot wide street with a 26-foot wide drive aisle with parking on either side and a stop sign. It is a interior street. It is the same size street as the streets across the way, and we'll be adding minimal traffic impact. The site itself has two entrances, one on the west side and one on the east side. The one on the west side is on the corner of Yucca Ridge Road and our new street, Iris Lane. We believe that will be the more heavily trafficked entrance into the community. Again, this is a site with approximately 35 homes in the north track, and we are only going to be building 32 homes, again, reducing the overall traffic flow by about 7 to 8%. This track has, again, two entrances, two exits. We are going to be improving the visuals on Sierra Madre as well. We're also doing a widening as part of our improvements, and including with that widening is an additional lane, a crosswalk, landscaping, and the removal of the construction fence, which again will add, I think, to the beautification of the views out there. Additionally, there was some concerns about the stormwater basins and the retention basins and the vector. The two new basins that are being proposed are what we refer to as dry basins. They will have a concrete bottom, and they will be maintained by the HOA. They are significantly more expensive to build than a dirt bottom basin, but the maintenance level on them and the overall aesthetics of them and the functionality of them, we're willing to expend that cost. So we are still in design, and we'll be doing community outreach to anyone who would like to know about the basins and about the construction and about everything else that's going on in Sierra Madre. We'll be working on a plan for that to reach out to the community members and let them know what is happening. Again, construction is no fun. It is going to be difficult. There will be some closures on Sierra Madre. We ask that everyone please be patient with us and to finish this site as quickly and efficiently as possible. We do have a number of construction challenges building on the hillside. So that is the conclusion of my time, but I'll feel free to answer any questions you may have.
And to the applicant, I will for the record ask you, you have reviewed the development conditions of approval that are in the resolution and you accept those?
Yes, I have reviewed those conditions. We do accept them. And we are accepting any, if the planning commission would like to move forward with what the staff's proposed, we have no objections.
Okay, at this time, discussion from the commissioners, Commissioner Becerra.
Yes, thank you. I had some questions and some concerns, but I think, Gordon, you have answered my concerns specifically about the basin. I think that's really important that everyone in the community is comfortable with the basin because that can be a problem. I know that for a fact. I don't know what you can do about the bears because even in really well-developed communities and neighborhoods here in Glendora in the hills, you get them. You just get them. So I think that once you get started in the construction and all of the fencing comes down and it gets all cleaned up, I think the visual on Sierra Madre is going to be much better. I personally understand the whole Barranca problem, but I think it's going to be much better once the construction is completed. I would support this.
Okay, Commissioner, Vice Chair Norwood.
Yeah, I have the one question. Well, I got a couple questions actually, but describe to me again, you said they're gonna widen Sierra Madre. You said additional lane, is that?
Yes,
so
it's in our approved street.
additional lane on each side going east and west, or, I mean, I was a little confused on that.
So we have approved street plans that were approved by the city a number of years ago. We haven't fully enacted those, but if they could bring up the site plan again, I could point to it, but if not on your calendar, on your exhibits. So we are adding to the curb face, we're adding curb, landscaping, sidewalk, and then additional landscaping 10 foot behind that, and then a slump stone decorative stone wall. So right here, the current construction fence goes right about to here. And all of this additional stuff will be pedestrian access. So we'll have a meandering sidewalk, landscaping, and then a slump stone decorative wall here along the entire perimeter. And then additionally, we'll be adding a middle lane here in Sierra Madre and adding the appropriate turn pocket here as well. This lot A, I don't know if you can tell, but here is where Sierra Madre currently is. This is a 30-foot slope down. And then again, it steps down another 30 feet here. So if you're standing on Sierra Madre, or if you have a home here, we are, again, about 30, 40 feet below them here. Again, another 50 feet below them here. So we're significantly outside of the view of anyone who has that. But again, Sierra Madre will be very much improved. And that is a current part of the plan. We're actually working with the county and the city right now for a traffic control plan. I'm getting bids on what to do in construction. We're going to try and shut down Sierra Madre as minimal as possible and keep all of the work on our side. But again, when you're expanding the lanes and so forth, there will be closures, and then we'll be notifying anyone within the area.
So there's no additional lanes, there's just gonna be a middle lane that can be shared for the turn pockets.
Yes, but I want to point out that Sierra Madre will feel a lot wider because you don't have that fence right up on the curb. You're gonna have a good 10, 15 feet of additional space out there. And then, yeah, and I'm not sure that curb, the existing curb and that fence is actually where it's supposed to be. I think it's actually gonna back a little bit. So actually we'll probably gain it.
I'm sure it'll be much improved along
And then
the southern edge there. As far as the basins go, they talked about being HOA maintained. who enforces that? I don't know if this would be a question for Jeff, who makes sure that the basins are maintained and properly? Or do we rely on complaints and then we?
The basins of the responsibility is the homeowners association.
So we do have homeowner associations managed by a professional management company, and we do have a budget to manage and maintain these basins. We are currently maintaining the Lot F basin in the southern tract. And then this additional Lot F basin here is going to be a joint venture on maintenance with us and the LA County Flood Control Department. And so we will be maintaining it. The reason why we actually chose to do the construction on 13 and 14 and 15 on concrete bottoms, as you can see, they're gray. The maintenance on them is significantly lower. The water drains out a little bit easier. They're just, again, more expensive to construct, but overall in the long term, the maintenance is much lower and you don't get the vector issue, hopefully. And again, we think that they're going to be dry basins. They're really there to capture those massive stormwater events that we have in California that are short, but angry nowadays.
And will there be landscaping on the perimeter of it to?
Yes. There's going to be landscaping around the perimeter of all the basins. And there's also going to be a slump stone block wall and wrought iron in certain areas where maintenance folks can check in and view, and then where maintenance vehicles can access that. Yes, so the entire basin is going to be screened. And it's also going to be obviously a depression. So you'll have trees, landscaping, and a fence and walls all around it. So our goal is that you will not be able to see it while driving next to it. That's the goal. Again, it's in development right now. We've did a preliminary presentation to the city to make sure that the landscaping and the screening are all within compliance of the city code. And additionally, we have additional safety measures because we're going to have a couple of view spots to make sure that if anything happens in the basin, we don't need to open up. We can easily check for safety and maintenance.
Okay. And my last question is, you mentioned a traffic plan study with, in conjunction with LA County. So I guess my question is, I guess I'm confused on the fact that
it wouldn't be a traffic study. It wouldn't be a traffic study.
Would be done prior to our.
No, I didn't. If I said traffic study, I apologize, misspoke. Is a traffic control plan for construction.
For construction.
Yes. So the Sierra Madre street plans have been approved for a number of years. And then the traffic control plan that I was referring to is when we go to construct it.
Okay.
When will it be closed down, how will it be closed down.
That makes more sense.
Sierra Madre is the tail end of it is county. So we'll be working with them as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
So do we need a traffic control plan submitted to LA County? Because some of the streets are, I know Rodriguez is in the city of Glendora and it's actually connecting to the side of
Glendora. Yeah.
Glendora. Yeah. So it's under the jurisdiction of Glendora, but do we need?
We're working with the Public Works Department right now to determine that. And we've reached out to LA County on what their preference is to that regard. Yes, but we're working both with them and we'll get a traffic control permit and the appropriate encroachment permits with both jurisdictions as they require before we, shut down any sort of lanes or anything like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, not construction, but more just traffic flow. Do we need to coordinate anything with Los Angeles County for traffic flow? Because even though it's all in our jurisdiction, and I get it, but I don't know if anyone in the Glendora staff can chime in on that. Is there anything we need to do with the traffic flow or any studies we need to submit or approval from LA County, not for construction, but just pure traffic flow? Because Barranca is part of Los Angeles County.
Well, I don't want to speak to the requirements of the city, but Los Angeles County, we are coordinating with them right now, and any requirements that they have, we will meet. I do not know the full scope of their requirements because we are working with them.
Well, I'm content the fact that you will meet whatever Los Angeles County requires in terms of traffic flow.
Yeah, absolutely. We already have an application in with them right now.
Okay.
So
I just want to say, I know we're having a lot of questions just for context and history, but we are kind of deviating from the topic at hand, which is the proposal for the design and the hopes. Traffic isn't part of the discussion for tonight.
Well, I beg to differ. I think it is part of the discussion, but I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page, that we rely on other county entities to sometimes make sure we submit what we need to submit with. I just was asking if we need to submit anything, that's all.
Yeah, and I think hopefully we're talking about the same thing. You're concerned with traffic control during construction, correct?
No, I'm asking if we need to submit anything or need any approvals from Los Angeles County regarding the traffic flow on Barranca, since part of Barranca is within their jurisdiction.
So the street improvement plans for Barranca and for Sierra Madre were, approved by the city. My understanding, they've also been shared with the county at some point in time, some years ago. The what you're talking about are part of the original entitlements going back to 2010 that approved the track maps. And so the traffic improvements were also concurrently approved at that time for the tract.
Okay, so that was approved in 2010.
Yeah, and then the final construction plans for the improvements for the streets that on Sierra Madre and Barranca and elsewhere, within the area, including the signal that was put in at Bennett, were approved as part of the original entitlements and then subsequent permits and approvals by the city's Public Works Department.
Okay. All right, that answers my question. Thank you.
Thank you, Patricia.
Okay, I'd like to say, first of all, I think it's good that you're building some smaller homes. I think, when we talk about affordable housing, not everybody needs a giant house and hopefully these homes will be priced more affordably than some of the other ones, because I think we definitely need that. I would like some clarification on the street Rodriguez Way. It seems like some of the information we're getting from you and from some of the speakers is a little bit conflicting in terms of the size of that road.
Sure.
So I don't know if city staff or who can answer that question about specifically what are the specifics of Rodriguez Way? Or is that?
If
question
if
for
no,
the
if you'd
developer?
like,
Okay.
I'm referencing up the plan here. Again, we have a track map for track 6608 that was
Right.
previously approved. On it, there are dimensions for Rodriguez Way. I'm not sure where the misinformation came from about a 60-foot road. But again, on the approved plan, it clearly shows that Rodriguez Way is a 36-foot wide a 36-foot wide road with a 26-foot wide drive aisle, because we have parking accommodated on either side. And it would be 36 foot wide, and then the 26-foot wide is the drive aisle. It's not an addition, it's just within the street. So it's a 2-lane road. It's a normal 2-lane road, just like the roads across the street. It's going to have a stop sign and access to Barranca, just like the roads across the street. We imagine that most people, if they're going north and wanting to get Sierra Madre, they would actually go out the west entrance on Yucca, because that is a little bit easier of a left turn. And again, if they also wanted to go down Barranca and it was crowded, they could also go down Yucca and go down Baldy Vista as an alternate route. Again, with the smaller homes, we will have smaller occupancies. We have about one less room per home. With the reduction in homes that we're going to be building, we're also going to have a reduction in vehicle miles traveled. So the proposal is actually reducing the overall traffic impact, which puts us again in standard conformance with the specific plan. So.
Great. And while I understand that we're not necessarily discussing traffic tonight, I know that it's part of any development. And I know you said the traffic study was done in 2012.
Probably the traffic study for this project probably goes back originally around 2009 and then was subsequently amended for additional traffic counts in both 2009 and 10 before the tentative map was approved by the city council around mid to late 2010. So the traffic analysis for this project was done for the 121 homes many years ago, and there were lots of public hearings where traffic was definitely a topic of discussion before the council approved the tentative maps.
Is there any, 2010 was 12 years ago, and obviously we know the area has grown immensely since then. Is there any type of updating to those plans that goes on or anything like that?
Well, in this case, you're looking at the northwestern part of the city. We're not changing, in this case, the number of lots. So this project is not creating any additional impacts on traffic. As Gordon indicated, they're actually reducing the number of homes to be built on the property. So this project is now arguably has less of an impact with respect to traffic, although 3 homes really isn't that many. So there's no net, increase as a result of the project in the last 10 years. It's still the same project that it was when it was approved in 2010. And even happening around it, the Monrovia Nursery project is more built out than it was in 2010, but that's really the other major project in this area. And the number of homes on that project were well-known long before that even. I think that project was approved by the voters in Azusa around 2004. So there's really no other major new sources of vehicles in the immediate area.
Okay, thank you.
I also just want to chime in there. I think it's important to note that the map again was conditioned to do the road improvements on Sierra Madre and Barranca that were appropriate for the scale of the development. Additionally, too, whenever we build a new home, we pay development impact fees. One of those fees is for local and regional roads. So we'll be actually adding to the overall development impact fee budget for improved roads throughout the city. So the homes here are going to be definitely paying their fair share for improvements into roads and improvements directly related to the development.
Thank you. Commissioners, any of you have any other questions, comments?
Well, I'm in favor of the project. I just want to clarify. I understand there's a difference between construction traffic and just traffic flow.
Sure.
So it was approved by city council. The track's been approved and for more homes that are being put in now. So I mean, I want the project to be done. It's a need. The residents there deserve to have this done and move forward. So I imagine if there were any issues with the county, we'd hear about it and, we'd have to deal with it appropriately. So
Yes.
that's it.
Okay, then. At this time, I will close public hearing and request a motion. Do I read the whole thing again?
I can do that. So
Okay.
then it would be a motion. Is there a motion and second?
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
Thank you. That's a motion from Chair Koss, a second by Commissioner Becerra to adopt a Planning Commission resolution entitled "A Resolution of the Planning Commission of the City of Glendora, California, approving a development plan review request seeking architectural and plotting changes to homes proposed for construction in tract 66608, phase 17-21, and model build out MBO, and homes proposed for tract 66609, and to eliminate 3 homes from the development phasing plan and compliance with the California Environmental Quality Act." Sorry, I'm going to take a roll call vote. Commissioner Becerra,
Yes.
Commissioner Davis is recused, Vice Chair Norwood,
Yes.
and Chair Koss.
Yes.
That passes 3-0. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay, next item. I read it this time, right? Okay. Okay, open and conduct public hearing, accept evidence and testimony. Oh, good, thank you. I forgot about, thanks. I forgot you were out there. Open and conduct public hearing. I'm sorry, what? Oh, I'm sorry. Ordinance, item 3, ordinance amending the Glendora Municipal Code Title 21 zoning regarding outdoor dining standards in the Glendora Village, PLN 220041. I now declare the public hearing open and I invite management and analyst Alicia Suniga to present the staff report.
Good evening, Madam Chair and members of the commission. As mentioned, my name is Alicia Suniga, and tonight I will be discussing proposed changes to the current Glendora Municipal Code with regard to outdoor dining. Next slide, please, Serena. I do invite Valerie and or Jeff to chime in at any point in my presentation should they see fit or at the time of questions. As many are familiar, the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic in 2020 resulted in a number of restrictions due to health orders as mandated by the state. Such restrictions negatively affected the very way those in the food industry conducted business. In an effort to assist these businesses in Glendora, the city went ahead and quickly put up temporary parklets to allow for an extended dining area. This would allow Glendora eateries to make up for lost business as a result of the closure of indoor dining. The temporary parklets were very well received by businesses and residents in the area. So the city approved to make them permanent and installed more permanent fixtures. With the installation of permanent outdoor dining, the city has identified the need to update the municipal code to properly include and regulate the use of parklets in outdoor dining in Glendora. Next slide, please. Currently, the Glendora Municipal Code, also known as the GMC, references the allowance of outdoor dining specific to the sidewalk dining in Section O of GMC 21.06.070 zoning development standards. At the time of this section's inception, parklets and outdoor dining practices did not exist in the city at the time. Therefore, this amendment looks to include them as they have become more prevalent. The proposed changes to zoning standards were developed with the input of 2 bid board members and have been reviewed by the bid advisory board to include recommendations made at their August meeting. In addition, the application permit review process will also need to be updated, which is addressed in Section P. This would amend application requirements, replacing a sidewalk dining permit with an outdoor dining use agreement, as well as replace the word sidewalk and outdoor throughout. Next slide, please. So the proposed changes are included in your packet in their entirety. I will just briefly go over them as they're the notable ones. Removals are noted in the drafted ordinance in your packet, and a strike through text and added language is going to be in bold. So first, title of Section O is changed from sidewalk to outdoor dining. The change also adds a wine and beer tasting rooms to possible users for outdoor dining, as they're currently not permitted. The process will require a use agreement instead of the current encroachment permit that's required. A use agreement will also need to be renewed annually. Once it is approved, it's just a renewal process at that point for every year after. Another notable change is the width of the primary pedestrian path. Staff initially recommended a 9-foot clearance, which is from primarily the brick ribbon to the building. However, after hearing recommendations from the bid, the recommended clearance has been reduced to 6 feet. This is the compromising clearance that we came to. Right now, entertainment and alcohol is not currently permitted. This amendment proposes to change that. However, a conditional use permit from the Planning Commission will be required, as well as approval from the Department of Alcohol and Beverage Control. Next slide, please. Just continuing with mentioning and highlighting some of the changes. Currently, power washing requirements are in place. These have been removed. Affixing any item to the right of way, which includes bolts, drilling, adhesives, and anything similar is prohibited. Affixing any item to the right of way includes the sidewalk and the street. So that's going to include both of those. Umbrellas must be no more than 10 feet in height and must be a primary solid color. Lighting must also not face the street. Overhead electric cords are prohibited, so you can't put those up. And any additional conditions may be added as these are the preliminary restrictions and additions. Violations are subject to penalties, fines, and reclamation. Next slide, please. So Section P is going to address the permit and the application permit review process. Again, title of paragraph 3, we're going to be changing sidewalk dining permit to outdoor dining use agreement. The changes replace sidewalk with outdoor throughout the document. We're updating planning director. I believe there's a typo on the PowerPoint there, to community development director. It's also going to include a requirement for an outdoor dining application, as mentioned previously. For the applicants, the application will require the following: that the business and property owner provides their information, acknowledgement of terms and the operating standards. You will be taking assumption of risk and responsibility with proof of insurance, which is included in the application, a copy of the ABC license and a conditional use permit for the serving of alcohol, if that is applicable to the outdoor dining area. And we also will be requiring a site plan as well. And with that, upon approval, there will be periodic inspections for compliance. I don't believe this is included on the staff report or any of the agenda attachments, but in addition to publishing in the San Gabriel Valley Tribune, we did also send out a mailer to all the occupants and residents within 500 feet of the area. We did receive one comment in response to the public hearing notice, and that is included in your packet as well. Next slide, please. At this time, staff recommends that the Planning Commission open and conduct the public hearing and recommend to the City Council the adoption of a categorical exemption pursuant to Section 15305 and 15061B3 of CEQA, as well as adopt the amended ordinance. And that does conclude my presentation at this time.
Thank you very much. At this time, I would like to address members of the public to address the commission and provide public testimony. Do we have any public comment cards? Fred Sparling? Sparling. Okay, thank you, Mr. Sparling.
Hard to write up my lap with a pen. Sorry.
That's
about
okay,
that.
thank you.
My name is Fred Sparling. I own the building at 146 and 148 North Glendora Avenue, and also the president of Classic Coffee. And I want to let you folks know that outdoor dining was a business saver. Really do appreciate all the city and everybody doing that. Really helped keep us in business. And I was put down there, I was against you doing it, but I wasn't aware of the last change in it from the 9-foot right away to the 6-foot right away. I think that is fantastic. It really is appreciated by the business owners, not just the restaurants, and also by the patrons. They have really stepped up and are using that and enjoying it. And it is a great benefit to the city of Glendora and the downtown business. So thank you very much and keep up the good work. And we do appreciate you, and we appreciate everything the city is doing for us, and knowing they stepped out and really over and above what was expected of them. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other public comments?
Thank you. At this time, we've received no requests to give public testimony via Zoom participants. I don't see that we've received any other public requests on the email as well. So no requests at this time.
Okay, so we will go to discussion and deliberation from the commissioners. Commissioner Basara.
Thank you. I do have a couple of questions regarding the power wash. There's not going to be a requirement to do the power wash any longer.
Be removed in this draft ordinance.
And how are we proposing to keep the sidewalks clean?
Hi, I'm Valerie Velasquez, Economic Development and Housing Manager. So originally we had power washing as a requirement for the sidewalk dining. Now with the parklets, so there will still be power washing that is done. I've got to double check, but it's either a quarterly, I think it's a quarterly basis or twice a year, just to keep the berries clean and whatnot. But with the parklets, I believe we cannot use the power washing. We don't want to damage the parklets that are out there. But the regular power washing that is done on the sidewalks, that will continue to be done. And the business owners themselves will be responsible for maintaining and cleaning their parklet areas.
So, well, how do we enforce that? How do we enforce the restaurant operators to keep the sidewalk clean? Because as it is right now, and we do have the power washing, we do see dirty sidewalks quite a bit.
And are you referring mostly to the berries or just in general?
In general, well, the waitresses will drop things on the sidewalk and it remains there, and witness it myself. So the cleaning of the sidewalk is sort of a concern to me. I mean, I'm all for the parklets and I'm all for the outdoor dining. I love it. I think we should have done it a long time ago. But I do have that concern about maintaining the sidewalks and keeping the areas clean. That's really important.
You know, we'll go ahead and address that. We are planning to do additional monitoring with the parklets and the regulations put in place. I think ultimately it is a business advantage for businesses to keep their restaurants clean. I mean, people obviously, if they let it get too out of hand, people aren't going to want to be there, and I'm sure they're doing their best, but we'll increase their monitoring and put some notices out there to make sure they keep it clean. But it's difficult for us to be out there all the time policing it, but it is definitely to their advantage to keep the areas
Right.
clean.
Is there any way that you can condition them when they do get their application to condition them to clean it on a regular basis? Because there is a shortage of labor and people won't be looking at that as the most important thing, but I think as a community, it really is important.
We'll see about how we can tweak the language to say regularly clean and keep the area maintained.
Yeah, so just to kind of add to that, one of the reasons that the power washing was removed is because back when this ordinance was originally adopted about 10 years ago, we felt that, we gave the businesses that responsibility to do that. However, I think the city has taken over more of the major cleaning of the downtown on a periodic basis, partly because of stormwater regulations. So we just can't have people power washing things into the storm drain system. So we want to make sure the city has control over that. And I think to answer your second question, the way that the ordinance is written, it changed to an annual permit. So the permit will not be forever. It'll be renewed every year. And so part of the evaluation that staff will do on performance and whether or not to renew or modify the conditions of the permit will be one of the things will be how clean the restaurant keeps their area, how well that they adhere to what they were approved to do. And so we'll have a regular way of monitoring at a minimum on an annual basis. And for especially initially, we're planning to go out there more frequently than that to make sure that people or restaurants are complying with what they've committed to within the agreement with the city.
Okay, thank you. All right, Commissioner Norwood.
Does the city own the parklets, or do the businesses own the parklets? Because they're on public properties.
Right, well, the city owns them, so we'll be entering into a use agreement. The application process will give them a use agreement to utilize the
But it's the
areas.
businesses that are maintaining the parklet. Making
Correct.
sure that they're.
Correct, yes. And I did just see, we do have, although the power washing is removed, we do have the condition in there that states restaurant owners shall keep their outdoor dining areas clean and clear of trash or other debris.
Okay. There was provided by the president of the realty group in town, and there were a couple items that he made, recommendations he made in the ordinance I found to be applicable, like 7 permanent parklets, the fact that he has semi-permanent, because they technically aren't permanent, they can be removed, can they not?
They can be removed, yes.
Okay. And yeah, I'm not going to go through them all, but there's some of them in there I thought that were more general in nature, would allow more businesses to possibly engage in outdoor dining. But I don't know, I'm sure you guys have looked at all that, so that's it. I think they're all a great idea, and they've been a boom for the businesses in downtown.
Commissioner Davis.
Yeah, I got a few things. I'm in agreement with Commissioner Norwood. Mr. Arturo's letter to the city, email to the city here, he's got some incredibly valid points. Are we going to address any of them, or if we pass this tonight, or any of this stuff going to be, like he's got one here that makes sense. It's a definition of on public property. It doesn't necessarily say that anywhere. Other providers of food or beverage in public, right? Is it a renewal process, pay fee, or reapply? And this one leads to one of my points. How about the string lights? Is that considered a cord?
The string lights is any, yeah, right. If there's a cord, nothing across the top of the buildings should be there. String lights in the parklet, that's fine. We're talking about across the sidewalk.
Okay, Frisella's has them over the street, over the sidewalk. They do not have a parklet. Will they be required to take theirs down?
We will be working with them, yes.
Okay. You know, naming the city of Glendora additionally insured. You know, he has some extremely valid points here, and I don't know that we've addressed any of them in any of these ordinances.
Do you want to walk through each one and can try to answer? I think some of them might be able to, some of them are dealt with other ways as I looked at the comments, but we could go through each one if you want.
Well, I guess if I have reassurance that we've considered these as I look at them, they're valid points. I don't know that we need to go through each and every one of them tonight. I don't know that will change the outcome of our vote, because yeah, I'm in favor of it because I like the parklets, and you know, as the previous speaker had mentioned, it's safe business. So I'm on board with it. I had a couple of concerns in terms of the string lights, you know, being an electrical cord. The power washing, I'm more concerned with underneath the parklets than I am around the parklets. That's where lots of the food crumbs drop. It attracts rodents, and how often is that cared for?
Yeah, that's something, and that's a maintenance issue that both the city and because it's still the city's parklet, and that the owner of the park or the user of the parklet are going to have to address it is a responsible of the user of the parklet to maintain the area of, and really the area that's subject to debris is really the area right against the curb. That's the area where water can flow.
Correct.
Under it, and you can get trash and things like that. And there is a way to clean that out. Actually, the plate lifts up, so you can then clean that area out. And that's part of, I think, you know, regular maintenance that we're going to have, that we're continually monitoring, because the parklets have been out there
2 years already.
for almost the permanent parklets.
Not the permanent, the temporary and the
been about a
permanents have
year.
been about a year.
Yeah.
Is Athens involved in cleaning downtown?
They are involved in some maintenance of downtown. Yes, they do. Of course, they do the emptying of the trash cans in the downtown. I believe there is some street sweeping that goes on in the village as well.
Right, and I'm just looking at our public works director, and she's saying, yes, they do our power wash. Athens is taking care of our power washing, as well as they're going to maintain under the parklets as well.
Okay, what about the cleanliness of the parklets themselves? Are the owners required to power wash them?
Right, they can.
Because it's raw wood?
Yes.
Or, okay,
Because
so it's
the-
untreated wood, largely untreated wood.
I believe it is treated wood. It's intended to last, you know, a decade. That's
It
the-
ain't lasting a decade, but that's a nice thought. Okay. So why are they not allowed to wash them? I'm not sure I can take your answer, sir.
But kind
Unfortunately.
of like, I think what Jeff was saying also, that there's some stormwater restrictions to just power washing, letting the water run down the curb
Okay, so
into
that
the
that
storm
brings me
drain.
back to, how do they get cleaned?
They can use a mop and mop it up if there's a spill or something of that nature.
Okay. I'm okay with the 6 feet. I would like to see, and this is going to sound like a Grinch, skateboarders and bikes. I see them there all the time, and they fly through there. And I've never, since they've been up, even when they weren't up, when the parklets weren't up, I never saw anybody enforcing this on this downtown streets ever. Now, timing is everything in life, and I just may not have been there, but I'm down there 2 or 3 times a week, different times of the day, evenings, and they're going to take somebody out. It's just a matter of time. So I don't know that there's a definite solution or even a long lasting solution, but I'm in favor of it. I would certainly suggest that we take a closer look at bikes.
No, and I don't mind. I think it's important to, you know, skateboarders and, policing of skateboarders is not necessarily the subject of this ordinance, but, it's worth a few moments to kind of go on a little bit of a tangent. And I think the city, that has been one thing, one of the many things that happens in the downtown that involve people and their behavior, that, the city has at various times, worked with the businesses, beefed up, patrol, added signage, tried to have direct outreach to some of the regular skateboarders in the area who frequent the area to try to address that. So it is something that the city is aware of, and, through both, I think, community services, through the public information officer's office, as well as the police department that's an issue we're continually dealing with.
Yeah, well, if you catch one, then you make them clean up the parklets.
Maybe a local business would want to give somebody a job. So that.
There you go. Okay, that's all I have. Thank you.
Well, I have to say, I agree. I think the parklets are fantastic. I don't drink coffee, so I don't go to Classic Coffee. Unfortunately, I'm not a coffee drinker, but I spend a good deal of time downtown myself. I eat there quite often, love the parklets. I do have a couple questions, couple concerns. I was originally concerned about the 6-foot clearance because, as I can attest to from absolute personal experience, I've seen this so many times. You're sitting outside, there's a sidewalk, there's people, people like to eat outside, they bring their dogs, people are sitting there chit-chatting. The entire sidewalk is blocked by that when the restaurant is busy. And sometimes walkers can't get through, and I can't even imagine what somebody in a wheelchair would go through to get through there. So I'm a little concerned about the 6-foot. I understand from a business standpoint, it's better because it allows them to have more outdoor seating and more business and more customers. But I'm not sure there's a solution, but I am concerned about that, especially during busy times for the restaurants. Is there any kind of comments or thoughts about that?
So we are very much concerned about the same thing, and a lot of the reasons behind updating this ordinance had to do with issues of different things popping up within the sidewalk, and I call the sidewalk or the street is the public right of way. And so we're the original ordinance did not require, I think it required 4 feet. And so we saw more chairs creeping into the area where pedestrians were walking. And so that's the reason behind requiring originally a 9-foot width, because that would ensure that you had that entire area between the building and where the tables and chairs were open and available for people to walk through, and if you were in a wheelchair and so forth. But I think the bid has provided a reasonable compromise. It will require that better compliance on the restaurants and better cooperation with the city, because we need their help and their partnership with making sure that the chairs that are against the building are only 2 seats, and when people bring more seats over to the table, we're gonna need their cooperation in making sure that they kind of remove them as quickly as they can. I would say, my observation, I think Classic Coffee does a good job of making sure that happens. The other thing is that I think that, and this is something in the future that the commission will have to deal with. Currently, there are a lot of other things that are in the right of way, in the sidewalk. There are signs, there are various decorations, public art.
Right.
And, strictly speaking, that's not allowed. However, it occurs. And so the Business Improvement District has asked, as part of their recommendation on this ordinance, that they be allowed to work with staff to craft some additional standards that businesses could agree to, so they could have some of those additional things out in the public right of way, like A-frame signs, like the public art, like, any number of things. And so I hopefully the Business Improvement District can help play a role in not only promoting the businesses, but through this and through their cooperation with other things, get better control over what's happening in the street, because really the bid is the one that has their eyes on the street most often, the bid members, the board. And so we're hoping that I can continue that partnership through this ordinance, as well as doing something additional that hopefully the council will give them some authority to do.
Yeah, I think that's great, because I think I obviously want to have as much outdoor seating as we can because that's what's best for businesses and that, allows more people to enjoy being outside. But I am concerned about that right of way and, it even being ADA compliant for wheelchairs and things. My other question, I'm still a little bit confused. I know everybody's asked about the power washing. You're saying the city is going to do power washing every quarter? I think you said that, right?
I was saying, I wasn't sure if it was quarterly or twice a year.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Allison Sweet. I'm the Public Works Director, and we just revised their amended Athens contract. And so we have the availability to ask for additional power washing. So I think it is quarterly initially, but we have the ability to call them out at any time.
Okay, good. Okay, thank you. That was it for my questions. Any commissioners have any other comments or questions?
I do. I have one other question. We're changing this from sidewalk to outdoor. What's the reason for doing that?
So that's inclusive of the parklets. Before, we only had sidewalks there, but we've had sidewalk dining since at least 2011. So now with the parklets, we're adding the parklets to it as well.
Okay, so if a new restaurant goes in, will they be able to use the sidewalk or will they
They
be
can
allowed
apply for a
to?
sidewalk dining permit, yes.
Would
or
they-
use agreement?
Would they also be able to apply for a new parklet?
We will consider those on an ongoing basis. I mean, or on a special basis. It's going to be determined on funding available.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Well, that starts to mess with parking, which is a big deal down there too, with additional parklets. The Stubborn Mule, what does that fall under? That's neither sidewalk nor a parklet.
That's private. So I know you mentioned there was a comment about public, this addressed whether it's public property. It is actually already in there to define that this applies only to public right of way. So that is already addressed. I know he made a comment in there about it, whether it applies to private or public. That's private property. This is only going to apply to public right of way areas.
Same outdoor dining fee.
We are working on the fee establishment. So he doesn't have a fee because he's private
Private,
property.
okay.
That's a part of his
So
a
between
lease
him and
agreement.
ABC,
Or his landlord, yes,
I think he is a landlord, but
right.
okay.
One last question I have. When we talk about this outdoor dining, does this also include that area of Mita that's now been closed off, or does it just the sidewalk areas?
Area and Mita is the city's overseeing, will be overseeing that area.
Okay, so that's not included in this particular ordinance. Okay. Okay. All right, I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing and request a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Thank you. That is a motion by Commissioner Davis, a second by Chair Koss. And that is to recommend to the City Council adoption of a categorical exemption for CEQA guidelines and adoption of an amended ordinance. And I'm going to take a roll call vote. Commissioner Becerra,
Yes.
Commissioner Davis,
Yes.
Vice Chair Koss. No, I'm sorry. Vice Chair Norwood
Yes.
and Chair Koss.
Yes.
That passes 4-0, sorry.
I know. Okay. All right, item 4. Consideration of an ordinance replacing section 21.3.100 of the Glendora Municipal Code and repealing section 21.10.230C10 of the Route 66 Coordinator Specific Plan Area-Wide Guidelines regarding the regulation of wireless telecommunication on private property and non-right-of-way property in compliance with federal and state law and establishing design standards PLN 210043. Okay, I now declare the public hearing open and I invite Senior Planner Hans Friedel to present the staff report.
Well, good evening, Chair and Commissioners. I'm here tonight with the proposed ordinance governing wireless telecommunication facilities, which includes like cell towers, cellular antennas, et cetera, on private and non-public right-of-way properties, which I'll kind of explain that in a minute. This will replace section 2103-100 in its entirety of the zoning code And as mentioned, a section of the Route 66 corridor specific plan, which has design guidelines and some stuff relating to wireless facilities in it. Next slide, please. And this also includes a CEQA exemption. Next slide, please. Okay, so what prompted this? In 2012, Congress enacted the Middle Class Tax Relief and Job Creation Act. This act included a provision to promote the deployment of 5G as it's an economic driver for the economy. Section 6409A of the act, known as, and I'll refer to this as the Spectrum Act after this, in reference to the wireless provider. And subsequent FCC rulemaking clarifying the provision, or 6409A, streamlines state and local government review of requests to modify wireless telecommunication facilities. Our current ordinance is out of compliance with this act and subsequent rulemaking. And you may be wondering about the lengthy title, which I mentioned, private and non-public right-of-way properties. In 2019, the city adopted an ordinance governing small cell and wireless facilities in public rights of way, which are city-owned, along streets and roads, et cetera. This ordinance will govern these facilities on private property. However, the city owns other lands other than right-of-way, including parks, and this will cover those as well. Next slide, please. So summary of federal law. Cities must approve a modification of an existing wireless tower or base station that does not substantially change the physical dimensions and subsequent of an existing site. And subsequent rulemaking defines parameters for what constitutes a substantial change. Modifications that don't result in a substantial change are called eligible facilities requests. I might refer to them as EFRs after this. The FCC established some shot clocks for EFRs and other types of applications. And, one sort of bottom line change that's very different than our current ordinance is cities and local agencies and governments cannot outright prohibit wireless facilities in any zoning district anymore. Cities can do things with sort of a carrot and stick approach to try to encourage or discourage certain locations, which we'll talk about more later, but they can't say you can't put these in any zone and exclude them. And our current code does not do that. Is out of compliance with that. Next slide, please. So kind of a high level summary of federal law, continue with this theme. Eligible facilities requests, federal rulemaking defines what constitutes a substantial change. I won't read all of these different parameters verbatim, but basically under 6409 and FCC rules, if someone doesn't increase the height or width of an existing facility, and I'll have a few pictures of these later, which will help, I think, clarify this a bit, by a certain amount, increase the number of ground mounted units by a certain amount. It has to be approved administratively without a hearing or some sort of discretionary process within, again, a certain amount of time. Bottom line, you can't have a public hearing for an EFR. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned, our current zoning code sections governing these facilities on private and non-right-of-way property is out of compliance with 6409 and FCC rules. Summary of some of the things that we needed to correct. Again, kind of a high level here is current code treats wireless facilities as conditional uses with different tiers of permits involving some level of either director or planning commission discretionary review. The Route 66 corridor specific plan also has design guidelines for wireless facilities that will be replaced by this update because it has its own design standards in it. There's also some internal inconsistencies. Current code prohibits wireless facilities in residential zones. However, we have facilities in our parks, some of our parks, and those zones, some of those parks are in residential zones, such as Finkbeiner Park. Next slide, please. So put this in here. This is kind of an intent slide. These are some of our goals with replacing and repealing this ordinance. One, and first and foremost, what drove this was to comply with federal and state law and federal rulemaking. Second, though, we did want to promote the general plan goal of ensuring compatibility with adjacent land uses and create something that is relatively easy and understandable to administer. We don't want to have long conversations trying to explain some of these aspects of this. So we needed to be something that we could administer at the counter when we do pretty high volume of these eligible facility requests here at the city. So summary of some of the changes. Next slide, please. Fundamentally, there are three types of applications for wireless facilities contemplated under this new ordinance. And these are really based in sort of that federal law and rulemaking. Eligible facilities requests, which I mentioned a few times, that's by the highest volume of thing we do. Minor wireless facilities permits and major wireless facility permits. Next slide, please. So here's my first picture slide of one of our monopoles here. So the first type I'll talk about is the EFRs, or eligible facilities requests. It's within the parameters of an EFR that I mentioned, within a certain height increase. And so maybe I'll just talk about this. This is a monopine wireless facility. It's a stealth facility in Finkbeiner Park. And it's designed to look like a tree. And there's also, you'll see there's a very similar one to that at a compromise line of Route 66. If you're heading sort of westbound, you can see it better. And so basically, they switch out the antennas on these quite a bit. So it's under federal law, that eligible facilities request, if a provider comes to us and wants to add a few antennas, but they're not going to make it more than 10% taller than the existing pole is, or 20 feet, a certain amount wider. They change out the ground equipment. Sometimes they'll add emergency generators, and that's protected by state law. We cannot run them through a discretionary process or hearing. Our current code basically would say it's an amendment to a conditional use. And we can no longer do that. So we have been complying with federal law as required. And our code's basically been sort of inconsistent with what we have to do. And that's really prompted some of these changes. These EFRs, changing out antennas on these, which you can kind of see some at the top there. It's probably one of the most common things that we do. We might say we get a couple requests a week for these, and maybe a couple permits a month, and their process is building permits. Next slide, please. Second type of application is called a minor wireless facility permit and a small wireless facility permit. And small wireless facilities are mounted on structures 50 feet or less in height, including their antennas, are mounted on structures no more than 10% taller than other adjacent structures. They do not extend structures on which they are located to a height of more than 50 feet. And there's a long definition here based in, again, federal rulemaking and law, but they're basically defined in Federal Communications Commission 47 CFR 1.6002I as amended or superseded. They may be newer pre-existing structures. And if we'll go to the next slide, I think the easiest way to understand these is kind of what they're not. The next category is the minor wireless facilities permits. And so this is something that isn't an EFR or major structure like a new tower or that full water tower that we saw a few months ago. The new ordinance treats this as, again, an administrative review with director approval. So this is kind of a second tier. We can't approve these anywhere in the city. However, as I mentioned, with that sort of carrot and stick approach, we introduce with minor wireless facility permits preferred and discouraged locations. So preferred locations we have as city-owned properties, including parks, parcels within manufacturing and industrial zones, parcels within commercial and professional zoning districts, and parcels within special zoning districts, including planned development zones that are not predominantly residential. Really, most places are going to be a preferred or okay location, and we discourage locations in residential areas. So that's kind of the main idea with this preferred and discouraged location concept. They have to justify going in a discouraged location, though, with evidence that no other location is available, including analysis. So we can't say it absolutely can't go somewhere such as a residential area, but if that's the only place they feel they can place an antenna or facility, they have to go through studies and justification that that's the only place they could be. And there wasn't another suitable location somewhere within a certain distance of that they could locate. So that kind of puts that burden on them to justify that. Next slide, please. Oh, this is a slide here with some pictures of these. These are going to be some of the minor wireless facility permit type structures. So on the left, these are building mounted ones. You'll see most people don't even notice these. The ones on the left are not stealth. So they don't have they're not blended into the building in some way or hidden or concealed. The ones on the right are actually worked into the building architecture. Oftentimes, and I've done a lot of these, and even in other cities, they're actually built into like the parapet walls of buildings. So you don't even know they're there. So like hospitals, office buildings, they'll generate lease money from having some of these, and they're built into like a hollow parapet. So sometimes there's an extra architectural feature added, or other times they're literally just behind the parapet wall on top of the building. These they work off radio frequency and line of sight. So they like to be higher than stuff around them. Next slide, please. Here's a few more. So here's an example of another structure I pulled off. This is I think in Paso Robles, and it's this building. I think it's a church actually on the left. You can see before, and then on the right they've added those sort of corner articulation pieces. And actually, I think maybe that looks a little better because it breaks up the plane of the building. And those are designed to conceal some of these small wireless facilities inside there. So there's antennas, and they can change them out and that sort of thing. Next slide, please. All right, the third category. So we talked about eligible facility requests, minor wireless facilities, which were things that aren't eligible facility requests, but again, fairly small in scale. These are the major wireless facility permits. And these are called macro cell sites in the federal code and rulemaking. These things are like new towers. So new monopine towers, or that faux water tank that we heard about a couple months ago when they extended they needed their conditional use extended. That would be a macro facility. That process for these is basically the same as it is in the code now. That still can be a discretionary process. So that will come to Planning Commission as a conditional use for a brand new facility. However, we have introduced again that concept of encouraged and discouraged locations. So we have some more guidance about where they can go. There's also a 100-foot setback to residential, and currently in the code, schools, which I'll talk about a little bit more here when we talk about this letter that we received. But we do have that 100-foot setback to residential. A lot of times in other cities' codes, you'll see that they have the setback is 1 foot of height for every foot of height of the tower. So it's kind of a fall thing. But we have that height limit of 50 feet, 100 feet would cover any number of eligible facility extensions on that. Next slide, please. So here's just a few pictures of some of the major wireless facilities or macro cell type ones. And they can come with the one on the left we should recognize. That's here in Glendora, will be. I think we have the pre-construction meeting coming up for that pretty soon in South Hills Park. The one in the center is a mono palm. So there's mono pines, mono palms, mono eucalyptus, pretty much any kind of tree. And then in some cases, there's some of those ones out in the desert that don't quite fit in. There's also, they can be concealed in sort of clock towers and other, architectural embellishments or freestanding type structures like that, if that's considered to be better stealthing or more appropriate for the environment it's in. A lot of times, if you're in a newly built area, a new development, and you see a clock tower or some feature like that, it's generally going to be something to do with wireless telecommunications, and that's why that it's there. Just like the San Dimas water towers are actually cell structures. So next slide, please. Okay, so that basically is the conclusion of my slides. We do have a slightly different, recommendation here, and I'll talk about that in a minute. We received a letter from McKinsey and Albritton LLP, which is law firm representing Verizon, which I think should be was distributed to each of you. And basically in this, they reviewed our ordinance, our draft, and have made a number of sort of recommended revisions to it. I think they were generally positive with our intent and, complying with federal and state law. Our attorney's office, Lana, and us reviewed this letter, and we I think are comfortable with a fair amount of these recommendations. I mean, most of them are going to make it more consistent with federal and state law, and also kind of make it more internally consistent. So if we have the updated okay, so there's an optional one. So, yeah, okay. So in our recommendation, essentially, we've crafted some, because this will have to be, the planning commission will make a recommendation to city council. These, we're going to have to take some time and make a few revisions, which we feel are fairly minor in scope. Again, we don't agree with every comment on here, but there was a handful of things on here that we think we can make some minor revisions to clarify in our code. So that we have that sort of third language there, direct staff to incorporate minor changes stated by staff and city attorney's office to address some of the changes outlined in the letter received from Verizon. And we can talk about if there's a question on a certain provision in this letter, and what we think, you want to ask us what we think a revision might be. I can talk about that. So with that, I'm here for questions, and I think we have the optional recommendation up there for planning commission.
Thank you. Okay. At this time, I invite members of the public to address the commission to provide public testimony. Speakers are limited to 3 minutes, speaking once on this hearing item. Do we have any public comment?
I do want to comment that we did receive one public comment that was handed out to council or to the commission and made available to the public and on the website. We've received no request via the Zoom participants and no comment cards or emails.
Okay. Then I will go to discussion and deliberation from the commissioners. Commissioner Basara, do you have any comments or questions?
I do not have any comments or questions at this time.
Okay, Commissioner Davis?
Couple of quick things. Nearby residents, if there's an EFR or a minor, or even a major, has to be at least 100 feet from residential.
So according to with our code, a new major site, so like a water tower or something like that, would have to be 100 feet away. The minor one, the sort of middle tier, which would be like typically adding it to a building or an office building or something like that. They can't put them on houses because the most discouraged zone is residential. You wouldn't, so that would also be recommended to be 100 feet away from residential.
Okay.
And EFR, I don't think, unless there's an existing facility within about that distance to your house, there couldn't be an EFR within 100 feet of your house.
Okay, that's kind of where I was going with it. And if there was any recourse, if one was planned for there, if they were 101 feet or 105 feet, was there a recourse through council or staff even if it is 100 feet?
So if
does a resident have any recourse whatsoever for any of these?
So on the the macro site or the major facility, so like the new water tower, new tower that's 100 feet, that would be that's a conditional, it's basically run like a conditional use. So it'd be a public hearing like this. There would be notices they would have to mail out, that sort of thing. So then a concerned resident or neighbor could offer testimony at a public hearing saying, hey, they would, whatever they want, oppose it, support it, add some stealthing to their side, that kind of thing. And then I do want to add too, we do have those design standards in there that they are, any new facility would have to be a stealth facility. They couldn't just put a tower there with antennas and stuff like that. It would have to, it'd have to be on an appropriate zone for one thing or site. And it would have to go through that process of discouraged or encouraged. It'd have to be an encouraged location, or they'd have to do a study, and then it would have to be stealth wherever they built it.
Is 100 feet common?
There's different ones in different cities. And we saw Nilana she's probably worked on more of these than I have. I've seen 150, 200.
Up to 250. It depends on just how aggressive you want to be. But it's to the extent that we have a lot of hills, and topography plays into this as well with respect to cell service and what cell service needs are.
Is that 100 feet as the crow flies, or is that 100 feet measured with a walking stick?
Most of ours are between like 60 to 80 from the ground up. Maybe you can get 100, but most of them are in the 60 to 80 range. I'll be honest with you, in Glendora and most surrounding towns.
Yeah, the other reason
they can go bigger.
Yeah, he's talking
I'm
about
talking about
setbacks.
tall. I'm talking
Setbacks.
about setbacks.
Oh, setbacks.
Distance from a residence.
And one thing I want to talk about with that too, and I we can't really pull up a map, but one of the reasons we chose that is because a lot of along some of our busier corridors and also in some of our parks, we have some smaller lots and a lot of smaller parcels in Glendora. So if so for example, the one in Finkbeiner Park now, if we were to have like, it's that monopine that's there. If, and actually frankly, the water tower too, because there's houses kind of back, some residential back there kind of by the wash, Dalton Wash. If we went, when we were kind of looking at some sort of distance that made sense, we wanted it to be wider than they were tall. So it covers that sort of fall issue, which they don't really, I mean, they're built to building code. You don't hear about them falling down very much, but it's peace of mind,
Right.
an aesthetic thing. But also we didn't want to create a situation where it was so big that buffer that they would always be, something like 250 or 300 feet, you're probably going to find a residence or an apartment or some sort of accessory dwelling unit or something, in which case that then makes it much harder to put these anywhere in our busier corridors, because there are residential behind the commercial uses on those corridors. And that's the kind of place I think that we felt that they should probably go, is in a more intense land use like that. So that was some of the rationale, I think, for that 100-foot, so that we wanted to have that aesthetic and safety separation and psychological, but also not preclude a lot of potential sites just because there's a house 250 feet or 200 feet away or something.
Yeah, because cell towers bring out a lot of people and a lot of comments.
They certainly can. I will add to what Hans mentioned, which is that we can't be in a position where by our zoning distancing, we, through our zoning, create the air of creating some sort of prohibition on these facilities from residential areas. So
100
that's
is
how we came
defensible.
up with that number.
Yeah. As a suggestion, when these come to you, and I noticed on some of the buildings, they were covered. You showed one where they weren't covered, the other way. I wonder if it has been instituted or not, but you get credits for shading windows and stuff under Title 24 and green building energy codes and stuff like that. These things could possibly be used as shading devices over windows as well. So if somebody comes to your counter and they got a building that it looks like it could use some shading, or they're planning on doing some shades, hey, how about some cell towers? Just to incorporate it. And lastly, I'm glad to see you've incorporated some of the suggestions in the Verizon letter. I didn't want to go line for line for line. I'm not that versed in cell towers, but some of them sounded legitimate to me as well. So I'm glad to hear that you're doing that.
Okay, Vice Chair Norwood.
I have no questions or comments. I recommend that we go with option 3, where we allow staff and the city attorney to implement changes and comments to the ordinance that was presented.
Okay, it seems to me from what I'm hearing, like this is something that, yes, we're going to be voting on and we're going to be making recommendations to city council, but it kind of sounds almost like it's something we don't really have a lot of choice about either, right? From the FCC, correct?
Well, there's things we have to do. There's some choice about specific, I mean, you could direct us to not require stealthing.
Right,
probably
but we
wouldn't want
would-
to
I
do
don't
that.
think we
I
I don't
wouldn't fit
think
with
we
our
would
general
direct
plan,
you
but I mean,
that,
so
no.
there's some, they wanted to try to craft this in such a way that there still is some local control of these things. Like we were talking about the specific buffer distance. I mean, we thought 100 feet made sense, but there's things like that that you could do.
And I appreciate that you read this letter and incorporated some of the things. I know they made some comments that about the 100 feet and how they felt that was too much. But I agree. I think 100 feet is certainly defensible. And I would not like to see it personally any less than 100 feet. I know they make that rationale in this letter, but I think that's a defensible amount. Other than that, I don't have any other comments. So I will go ahead then. If none of the commissioners have any additional comments, I will close public hearing and request a motion.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second the motion, but again, I'm looking at option 3. So if I don't know if that's a separate motion.
Oh, is that a separate motion?
It's listed right now as a third. So you first are going to be determining the ordinance is subject to CEQA. And not subject to parents, not subject to CEQA. Recommended to city council adoption of the proposed ordinance for approval based upon minor changes by staff as approved by city attorney's office to address received public comments.
Can they
So-
be?
So we're
grouped?
making that first and then we're doing three separately.
So yeah, it's going to be, well, it'd be first to determine the ordinance is not subject to CEQA. Second, recommending the city approve based on minor changes. And then proposing to the city council the proposed ordinance with those minor changes.
Is that three different motions? or
That's what
can
I'm
we group
asking
them
you.
It can all be one motion.
It
if
can
you
all be
wish.
one motion.
So then we have a motion then and a second, correct? And then three is part of that motion.
Yes.
Okay.
So we have a motion then from Commissioner Becerra, I believe. Okay, and a second from
Vice Chair Norwood.
Vice Chair Norwood. Okay, I'll take a roll call. Commissioner Becerra,
Yes.
Commissioner Davis,
Yes.
Vice Chair Norwood.
Yes.
And Chair Koss.
Yes.
That passes 4-0. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Next item, does anyone, item 5 is the consent calendar, the minutes from September 6, 2022. Does anyone wish to comment on item 5? I don't see anybody, so I'm going to go ahead and request a motion to approve those minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from September 6th.
I will
Second.
second. Oh, go ahead. All right.
I'll second it.
Okay.
Thank you. Motion by Vice Chair Norwood, a second by Commissioner Davis. I'll take a roll call. Commissioner Becerra,
Yes.
Commissioner Davis,
Yes.
Vice Chair Norwood,
Yes.
and Chair Koss.
Yes.
That passes 4-0. Thank you.
Are there any other member agenda items from? Okay, I see no unfinished business and no new business items. Right now, I invite the commissioners and staff to make closing comments. Commissioner Becerra.
I do not have any closing comments. Thank you.
Commissioner Davis,
No, staff, thank you for your work.
Vice Chair Norwood.
None for me today. Thank you.
And I would just like to also thank the staff, and I'd also like to thank the members of the public who came in and spoke this evening. And I will go ahead and adjourn this meeting at 9:02.